I'm Troy Kirby with a quick look at the 2022 Washington State legislative session. The Senate Law and Justice Committee heard public testimony on Substitute House Bill 1735, which would modify the standard for use of force by peace officers. The bill passed the House 90-5 on January 28th and would have to pass the Senate for an opportunity for the governor's signature in order to become law.
The standard for a peace officer to use deadly force is amended by limiting its use to only when necessary to protect against an immediate rather than imminent threat of serious physical injury or death to the officer or another person. A peace officer must use less lethal alternatives that are available and appropriate under the circumstances before using deadly force. And the standard for reasonable care is amended to apply to the use of deadly force as well as physical force.
Last year, neck restraints were abolished under the legislation. If this bill were to pass, could that possibly be used?
Currently, this legislation does not discuss the status of neck restraints.
Senator Patton, I would actually refer you, trying to answer your question, to page 5 of the bill. There's a sub 4 that says a peace officer may not use any force tactics prohibited or otherwise by law, except to protect his or her life or the life of another person from an imminent threat. So I think that's a situation where if the officer is fighting for their life, they're allowed to use whatever tactic they can.
So the biggest things I like to focus on is again, the mental health side. We really know that our system is very strained in the state of Washington, and we've learned very carefully that peace officers and our function, our duties are key to getting people into involuntary treatment when they don't want to go. That's the nature of involuntary treatment. And sometimes that may involve a minor use of force, such as having to put somebody in a car or transport them or get them out of a car to get them into an emergency room for treatment. And it's important to us that we get those folks to the places that they need to get the psychiatric treatment that they so much deserve.
1735 provides important clarifications for when an officer can use reasonable force in civil instances where no crime has occurred, such as a mental health crisis.
House Bill 1735 provides that clarity needed when a peace officer responds to a behavioral health call, allowing peace officers to be part of a larger approach to behavioral health crisis.
We appreciate the hard work that Representative Johnson and the other sponsors have put into this bill to ensure that in the many civil instances accounted for here, law enforcement can respond appropriately where called upon.
My son has had life-threatening and devastating consequences due to the police in 4 local cities' confusion over the 1310 bill's use of force. We've been dealing with this since October 24th through 911 calls, citizen complaints, several welfare checks, 2 missing persons reports, and a DCR mental health warrant. That day is when my son went into a full-blown psychotic episode with paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations. The police in each city refused to take him against his will to the hospital and said he would have to commit a significant crime in order to get medical treatment. Even with the DCR warrant, they all cited the 1310 bill.
When the anti-police laws passed and took effect in July, I realized that those police officers would not have been able to save my daughter after those laws have passed. So I'm here today in support of House Bill 1735. I work with a lot of law enforcement around the state in support and collaborating with them. And they tell me that this bill is a good bill and it provides clarification, but it could go further. So I would ask the committee to please work together with law enforcement around the state to make the tweaks and changes to this bill to give clarification so that our law enforcement can provide the service and protection that our communities so desperately need.
We repeatedly heard the message that you are on your own with your own residents decompensating with mental illness and presenting a serious risk to harm your staff or other residents. I want to describe for you just one incident that captures the danger and the need for a substitute House Bill 1735. In summer 2021, we had a resident experiencing serious mental illness and become very agitated and was presenting as a safety risk to our staff and residents. He violently punched his way through a plexiglass barrier we had erected in response to COVID-19 spread at our front desk. The glass shattered and cut the face of the staff person sitting on the other side of the front desk. We called our local city's police department. They arrived and told us that this person was experiencing a mental health condition and they were not going to detain this individual.
Law enforcement officers must have a favorable landscape to do good police work, and this includes the use of force. Last year's reforms were unbalanced and fraught with emotion instead of reason.
I think it's a great idea to make the police be a solution instead of a bystander. So anything that goes in that direction will be great for our citizens.
Thank you for watching the 2022 Washington State Legislative Session.